All right, today we are diving into one of the most mind-bending puzzles in all of statistics, the birthday paradox. And trust me, it's a puzzle that brilliantly shows just how easily our own common sense can lead us completely astray from what's actually true.
So let's just jump right in with the big question. Picture this. You're in a room with 22 other people. That's 23 of you in total. Now, what does your gut say? What do you think the odds are that at least 2 people in that room have the exact same birthday? Seriously, take a guess. 1%? Maybe 5%?
Get this, the answer is an unbelievable 50.7%. That's right. In a group of only 23 people, it is literally better than a coin flip that 2 of them share a birthday. And if you're thinking, no way, that just can't be right, you are not alone. This is precisely why it's called a paradox.
But let's be super clear here. This isn't a logical paradox, like this statement is false. It's what's called a veridical paradox, which is a fancy way of saying it's something that is absolutely, provably true, but just feels completely absurd to our brains. So the real question isn't if it's true, it's why we get it so wrong.
Okay, so first, let's dig into the psychology. Why does that 50.7% number feel so impossibly high? Well, it turns out it comes down to a couple of key mental shortcuts, or biases, that pretty much always lead us down the wrong path when we try to think about probability. The first and, honestly, the biggest trap is something called the my birthday fallacy. The moment we hear the question, our brains, without us even realizing it, reframe it from our own selfish point of view. We hear, what's the chance someone shares my birthday? But that's a totally different question with a much, much lower probability than the actual question. What's the chance that any 2 people in this room share a birthday?
I mean, just look at the staggering difference here. In that same group of 23, the chance of someone sharing your specific birthday is only about 6%. And that number, that feels right, doesn't it? It lines up with our life experience. But the chance of any old match among all the possible pairs is that massive 50.7%. We confuse the specific question with the general one.
So the second big reason our intuition fails us is that, well, our brains love straight lines. We just assume that if you double the number of people, you kind of double the chance of a match. But that's not how it works at all. The probability here doesn't grow in a straight line. It explodes upwards because the number of possible pairs just skyrockets.
And here's the absolute key to understanding this whole thing. In a group of 23 people, you don't have 23 chances for a match. You have 253 unique pairs of people. Every single one of those pairs is a new lottery ticket, another chance for a birthday match. Our brains just don't compute that kind of explosive growth.
Okay, so we've seen why our intuition gets a failing grade. Now let's actually look at the math and see how these odds stack up so ridiculously fast. And don't worry, we're going to keep it simple. The real trick is to flip the entire problem on its head.
The really clever way to solve this is by using something called complementary probability. See, trying to calculate the odds of at least one match is a huge headache. You'd have to account for 1 pair, 2 pairs, maybe 3 people all sharing. It gets complicated fast. It is way, way easier to calculate the exact opposite. What are the odds that absolutely nobody in the room shares a birthday?
Here's how that works. Just imagine people walking into a room one at a time. The first person, well, they have a unique birthday for sure. The second person has a 364 out of 365 chance of not matching. The third person comes in, and now there are only 363 safe days left for them. So with every single person that joins, the pool of available unique birthdays gets smaller, and the probability of everyone having a unique birthday just keeps on shrinking.
And what's so cool is just watching these numbers climb on this chart. With 10 people, the chance is still pretty low, about 12%. But by the time you hit 20 people, you're already at 41%. And then boom, you cross that 50% line at just 23 people. And just look at what happens when you get to 57 people. The probability of a shared birthday is over 99%. It becomes almost a statistical certainty.
Now, this whole thing isn't just some fun party trick or a brain teaser. This exact mathematical principle is actually a fundamental concept in modern cybersecurity, and it creates a famous vulnerability that we call the birthday attack.
So, in the world of cryptography, something called the hash function acts like a unique digital fingerprint for a file. You can feed it a huge document, and it spits out this short, unique string of characters called a hash. The most important rule is that no 2 different files should ever produce the same hash. We call that collision resistance. So let's say a hacker wants to create a fake document that produces one specific hash that they already know. Well, that's just like trying to find someone in a room with your specific birthday. The odds are astronomically against them. It's considered basically impossible.
But what if the hacker's goal is just to find any two documents? Maybe one is a legit contract and one is a fraudulent one that just happen to reduce the same hash. Well, you guessed it. Just like the birthday problem, the explosive number of possible pairs makes finding any collision way, way easier than our intuition tells us it should be.
And that, right there, is the entire idea behind the birthday attack. It's a statistical shortcut. And because of this principle, the digital fingerprints, the hashes, that secure all our data have to be incredibly long. They have to be much longer than you'd think, just to make the pool of possible birthdays so mind-bogglingly vast that finding a random collision is still impossible for even the most powerful computers. So let's zoom out for a second. Beyond the cool math and the scary cybersecurity stuff, what's the big lesson here? What does this paradox really teach us about the way we think?
You know, the birthday paradox is really the perfect lesson in a little intellectual humility. It shows us that our brains are just not naturally built to understand things that grow exponentially. It proves that we automatically default to a narrow, what about me perspective, and most of all, it's a powerful reminder that when it comes to statistics, our common sense can be a really, really terrible guide.
So in the end, a simple question about birthdays ends up exposing these deep flaws in how we think, and it has massive consequences for things like global cybersecurity. And it kind of leaves us with one last big question. What other things that we just take for granted as obvious would completely fall apart if we just stopped for a minute and actually ran the numbers?